people say the NFL stands for not for long. My husband won a Super Bowl. It's a lot of glitz and glamour, parties and fame, people asking for autograph and all that stuff. And then when it's over and when you're at the height of that, it's very empty and it fades quickly. At the end of the day, it wasn't fulfilling for our inner selves. I think a lot of people experience this through COVID, realizing how dependent you are on the system. I'm like, we need to grow our own food. The school system is designed like factories. Do what you're told, listen to authority, and that's how it's gonna be. Not the system I want my child to be in. We never actually considered homeschooling as a thing. I didn't choose that life, it chose me because we didn't have any other options. I like to see myself as the curator of their education. They get through all their academic stuff in 2 hours. Then you have the rest of the day to focus on the enrichment. I planned the home birth. Exodus came 5 weeks early. And I called my midwife and I was like, she's like, it's too early. I can't do anything for you. You have to go to the hospital because midwives can't deliver if a baby is born before 36 weeks. There was kind of just yelling and like it was just happening so fast. And
Samar, welcome to the show.
thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Your husband has played for some of the most prestigious NFL teams, yet your family has chosen a very different path from what most would expect. What inspired this journey?
I think when we were in the NFL world, everything it's kind of like you see, it's a lot of glitz and glamour and you get to experience, you know, these parties and these events and the fame and people asking for autograph and all that stuff. And then when it's over and when you're at the height of that, and you know, my husband played in the Super Bowl and they won a Super Bowl, and you kind of come down and you're just like, it doesn't actually mean anything. And so it wasn't really anything that was that meaningful. Like yes, it brought us a lot of incredible experiences and, you know, the wealth to be able to do a lot of things and invest and be able to live lives that we want to live. But at the end of the day, it wasn't anything that was fulfilling for our inner selves.
Is it safe to say that the glitz and glam that we as spectators witness and like, you know, we look up to the players and their wives and all the things that they do. I mean, there's shows around the wives at this point, you know?
Right.
Is empty.
It's very empty and it fades quickly. Like the second you're gone, like they've moved on, they've replaced, you know, you're replaceable like this.
Yeah.
And you know, you've heard people say the NFL stands for not for long. And so,
oh, I've never heard that. That's amazing. Not for long.
Yeah, because the average NFL career is like 3 to 4 years. I mean, my husband's was longer because of his, you know, he played very well and in his position, they can last a lot longer. He played for 11 years. But it's fleeting, it's quick, and I think that's why you see a lot of guys, and I've experienced this with a lot of my friends whose husbands played. They go through, like, it's a very common thing for these guys to go through depression afterwards because this is something they did their whole entire lives. Imagine this is what you do since you're a child and this is your purpose. And then it's just, boom, it's gone and you have to find something else.
It's your identity too.
Yes, a lot of guys, and I'm very lucky, like Russell always had deeper purpose and the sense of purpose and what he wanted to do in this world. And so the transition, like, yes, it had, you know, its moments that were challenging. But I think compared to a lot of things I've seen, like guys that I hear, they are just in a room playing video games all day. Like they just don't know how to deal with reality after the game is over. And so I'm lucky we didn't have to deal with anything like that.
Well, you also have to kind of reinvent yourself.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. Like, and I feel as though both you and Russell are very conscious people, very intentional people. You know, I've spoken with Russell several times and I feel like he's just a very self-reflects, very self-aware individual. And I feel like you both fuel each other in that to always be better. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like you wouldn't, if you wanted to slip away and play video games, I feel like you wouldn't let that happen.
No.
It's not going to happen.
No.
It's not a choice here. What initially inspired you to start questioning mainstream approaches to health, education, and family life?
Yeah, I think a lot of this happened around COVID. And so there was a lot of these defining moments that kind of all happened at the same time. And that was my husband's retirement and then COVID happening 2020.
When did he retire?
2020, at the end of 2020.
Oh, so it was like right around there. Okay.
Yeah.
'Cause March 2020, we had COVID.
Yes.
Okay.
So the last season he played in was in Charlotte. And I remember just being like creeped out, even going to the stadium. It was, I don't know if you remember seeing that season when the stadiums were just empty.
Empty, yeah.
Yeah, and it was
You guys were allowed to go. You guys were going.
We were allowed to go, but there was like no fans in the stand, and it was like everyone was wearing masks. And I remember even like the mascot for the Panthers is the panther, and the panther was even wearing like a mask. And like I had brought my son, and he was just like, "What?" You know, it's just it was kind of
yeah. No, it is weird. Like
it's a lot.
Yeah, the Panther's wearing a mask now. Like, I mean, I don't know. And especially for kids, I feel like that could be a little bit traumatic.
I think so. I think
Yeah.
it's not natural to see people's mouths covered up when you're a child. So a lot of these defining moments kind of happened at the same time and kind of thrust us into this kind of life where we, I think a lot of people experience this through COVID, and where you just look around and you're like, this is, it's kind of, the veil is torn, and you see things for how they really are. And so a lot of that had to do with, going to the grocery store and not finding things on the shelf and realizing how truly not self-sufficient you are, how truly dependent you are on the system, how much you've relied on it and how it doesn't actually serve you. And then you saw all the health mandates that came out with COVID, and then you start to question, how are they going to tell everyone this one size all fits, vaccine thing or whatever it is, this is what we all have to do. And so you start to kind of question the narrative.
At the time that Russell walks away from the NFL, how many kids do you have?
So we just had one.
You had Cairo.
Cairo.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was pregnant with my second.
You're pregnant with, so you are already thinking and going through, you're already in the space of looking at life through a mom's eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when you're going to the grocery store and not finding what you need, and you're realizing, wow, we are dependent on the system. They shut down or they do something, we're at their beckoning call.
Yeah.
And now you have another one on the way.
Yeah.
So your wheels are already starting to spin.
Mm-hmm.
What are you saying to Russell?
I'm like, we need to grow our own food. We need to have, that was when I came back from the grocery store that day and I couldn't find milk for my son. I was like, we need to figure out how to grow our own food. And at that time we had, he was playing in Charlotte, but our home was in California. And we have this, in California, you get a tiny little land. We have 0 yard, nothing, nowhere where you could grow anything or even have a child that can go in the backyard. And I'm like, that's not going to work for us. We need to find a place where we can raise a family, where we can grow, have trees, have fruit trees, have a garden, and the kids can run around.
And you didn't think about this stuff before COVID?
No. Not at all. I was happy with our little beach house. Hey, there's the sand, there's the beach, and it was fun, but you just didn't think about the practicality of it.
Yeah. You've lived in multiple countries and cultures throughout your life. How has that journey shaped your perspective on conventional ways of living and learning today? I
was born in Egypt, and we moved to the United States when I was 7. And the only person we knew when we moved was my uncle that had lived here, and he lived in Iowa. So imagine going from the deserts of Egypt to
Iowa.
And I just remember, and also Egypt is we lived in Cairo, it's very heavily populated. And I remember just being like, Mom, where is everybody? Because we were in the suburbs, and there was you didn't see people. And then you see the snowfall. And so it was definitely a shift. And they thought the best thing for us was to assimilate more. So they spoke English at home, and it was more about adapting. And I think as I grew up, I wished that they had spoken Arabic in the home and kind of kept more of our own traditions. But I feel like a lot of that I kind of lost a sense of that along the way. And it wasn't until I grew up and I really started to try to reconnect with my language and my roots.
When did you start to try to reconnect with your roots? After kids or before kids?
I think before kids, but more so, I think it became more of a priority to me when when I started having kids, because I wanted them to learn the language. And I just had the thought, if they don't learn Arabic, then it ends with me, and they don't know. And I feel like language has a lot to do with your culture and who you are.
I agree. I also think something with language, and I think you would understand this. When you are raised, because you know English and Arabic, right? Growing up, okay. There are things that you feel and want to say and want to express, and I think we've had this conversation before, that you can't say and express, because in English, there's no word for it. There's no words to express the depth of something. I say this to Brian all the time. I'm like, I want to say something so bad right now, but there's not the words. Or even love, or even positive, mostly it's for love, or positive, deep feelings, that they stay up here for me, or here, because I can't put them into English. There is no words, there's no sentence that can describe that. But I also feel that's one of the reasons why we can experience life it's two worlds. And I don't think people really understand that about some of us who grow up with immigrant parents or who are immigrant children here. We're seeing life through two worlds, through two viewpoints, 24/7. One time, I think it's Brian who asked me, he's like, do you dream in Hindi? He's like, what language do you dream in? You know, and I'm like, it's like a hodgepodge of everything sometimes for me.
Yeah.
But I think that's a very cool experience, and I couldn't imagine if I had kids, them not getting to experience this.
Yes.
You know, even though when you're growing up, it's kind of a bit of like odd and awkward, and we'll get into that later. Now as an adult, I think like, oh no, like that's cool.
Yeah.
That's a different, unique experience. Because even when someone's going through something, when you're traveling or talking to somebody or they're talking to you, you're processing or at least I am, in two different ways at all times. So I'm understanding on a deeper level, I feel, than if it was just one language that I knew.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's important for kids.
Yeah.
We'll get into the developmental stuff too later for sure. What were your first steps toward becoming more self-sufficient, and what challenges did you guys face along the way?
Yeah, so we decided to plant a garden right when we moved to Miami, and that was like right after the football season. We got here and we found some like knowledgeable people on gardens that were gonna, okay, this is how you get a bed, and this is the proper positioning for it. And these are the kind of things that can grow in Miami. And so we kind of just started there. And so we planted all of our own herbs, tomatoes, cucumbers, eggplants, all these things. And then we had some mango trees. And then we started growing bananas. And we involved the children along in the process. And that was really beautiful. But I think we thought we had a different kind of expectation, was that like we were going to be like completely self-sufficient. And then you find out like, well, this little garden bed, like you can't live off of it, right? So you really learn that like self-sufficiency is important, and like knowing how to grow food and plant seeds, and like knowing how, you know, the soil, learning about the soil and the sunlight. These are all important things that you should know, but also like being somebody that understands the community and how you like community sufficient. So like, no, we don't have any goats, but we drink goat milk. So like doing your research, finding out like where do you get the best goat milk, where do you get the best meat, like knowing your local farmers. We go to a lot of farmers markets. Like we're at the farmers market every weekend, knowing like where the local produce and local organic produce comes from, and having those like actually personal relationship with the farmers. We actually thought about buying a farm for a while, and it ended up not working out. But like through that process, we got to know a lot of the local farmers and like understand where these things come from, and being sufficient in the sense of a community, and not just being like in this bubble where you think that you're going to be able to take care of yourself, because that's just not how life works. That's why there was always like trade routes and things, you know, that people had.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think recognizing that if for someone who's watching and is thinking about it, it's like, yeah, your garden, so to speak, you're not going to, depending on where you live, you can't even grow everything.
Right.
In the climate, right? We're lucky here in Florida, but even then, some things you can't grow here.
A lot of things you can't, yeah.
With that being said, could you walk us through what they eat on a typical day?
Breakfast, you know, this is funny because we're always evolving. And so like, I think breakfast always looks like eggs and like maybe pancakes or whatever, which is what we kind of do. But we also have like a fresh juice with it. But like Russell and I were thinking recently, we're like, what if we just try to like have like a warm soup for breakfast? Like that kind of makes a lot more sense, to have something that's warming in the morning, like your body's just like getting going. And so we've kind of been experimenting a lot with that lately, is like doing like something like warm, like some sort of like a soup, like to incorporate into breakfast.
In Asian culture, they're big on warming foods to break your fast in the morning with like porridge or congee, which is like a rice porridge type thing, simply because that's what stimulates your digestive system.
Exactly.
And they're not big on meat in the morning because meat is very hard to break down for whatever reason. But explain the quail chicken egg thing.
Okay. Okay. So a part of our diet has to do with like a biblical diet. And we're not like super religious people or anything, but we do believe that there's a lot of ancient wisdom in the Bible. And so in Leviticus, there is a set of kind of like rules of things you shouldn't eat. And so that includes pork, and that includes shellfish. And this is like, mind you, this was written, you know, in ancient times. So people didn't know that, you know, shellfish were bottom feeders, or people didn't know like what, you know, actually like pigs, you know, are how they digest and all these things. But another thing is it mentions is don't eat vultures. And vultures are birds that eat things that are dead. And so chickens are not supposed to be vultures, But the way that they've been bred in the United States, so even if they're raised organically on a farm or whatever, like if you put, there's YouTube videos you can watch on this. So people will go to a chicken farm and they'll put like something dead in front of the chicken and the chicken will go eat it. So that's how you know that it was bred with something that's a vulture. So if you think about this concept of you are what you eat, and so like why would you want to eat something that eats things that are dead? It's in its DNA. So we cut out chicken a few years ago, and with that we cut out chicken eggs. Okay. And then we learned about quail eggs, which are, if you've ever had them,
they're tinier.
They're these tiny little eggs, and like they take forever, but it's worth it. And they're actually, if you research them, they are more nutrient dense, and they taste better.
Okay.
Which, you'll have to try them.
I still have to try them. Yeah.
Yeah. When you come over, you'll have to try them. Yeah. But, and so that's why we don't do the chicken eggs. We stick with like the fundamental kind of biblical diet that teaches you that like you are what you eat, and you shouldn't eat these things that are bottom feeders and these things that eat dead things. And so we try to keep it kind of clean in that way.
What does lunch look like for them?
So that's kind of the tricky part with our schedule, because then they have like jujitsu in the afternoon. So we actually are more about like snacking. Like we put out healthy snacks. They're obsessed with fruit, and we'll just have like different kind of like crackers and vegetables, and like they love it. And things out throughout the day.
As they want to eat, correct?
As they want to eat.
It doesn't have to be like we said, the obey, have to have 3 meals, have to eat at this time, have to do this. The kid's hungry.
Yes.
The kid's gonna eat.
Yes.
Right? But I feel like you don't force them. Yeah. You don't have to like, chase them around and like, there's a medical part to this, and I wasn't gonna go there, but just to touch on it a little bit, I do think that food is very abused in our society and in our country.
Yeah.
We don't need to have 3 meals. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
And I believe that the human body, including kids, are very intelligent, and it's designed to give you cues. Mm-hmm. Adults, we can get in the way of our own well-being, but I believe kids will say, "Hey, mommy, I'm hungry."
Yeah.
Or they'll pick up the banana that's sitting there. If you leave it out for them, the healthy options, they'll go grab it when they're hungry.
Yeah.
They're not going to eat out of boredom.
You're right.
Especially your kids, they're always doing something. But like, I feel like that's an important thing to say, because I do feel it's lunchtime, you have to eat. Well, if you don't eat, then you can't get the cookie. Why are you forcing the child to eat?
And they're different each day, because they have like their bodies grow, like they have these growth spurts. So sometimes like my 5-year-old, like like you can see he wants more and more breakfast, and then sometimes he's just like, I'm not hungry, and you don't want to have them like the association with food, like, no, you have to eat this. So
Agreed.
It's like, okay,
or finish your plate.
Right.
These are all things that as we get older, they cause not full-blown eating disorders, but they're like issues, like because you were told you have to finish your plate, then whatever you pick, you have to finish it now as an adult. You know what I mean? Like, they're very subconscious programming things in all of us that I look back and think, I'm like, that wasn't really good. Like, I am the way that I am because of some things, because of my childhood, right? So you kind of want them to be able to listen to the cues of their own bodies and learn, like, hey, not every day are you going to be hungry. That is a normal thing. That's okay. If one day you had juice, the next day you had oatmeal, and the other day you skipped because you just weren't hungry, good. Listen to your body.
Right.
That's the way, but you can only teach them that if you give them that rope when they're young to do so.
Yes, and when you're not on this time schedule, like it's going to be easier for them to just eat when they feel hungry.
When they want to, yeah.
Yeah, and usually...
Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, you said dinner, and I know that we try to do more of like a lighter dinner, not something so heavy, and they eat dinner around like 6 p.m. That's kind of like our more like...
Scheduled.
More scheduled, because it usually falls right after like jiu-jitsu, or they've just done something that's pretty rigorous and they're hungry anyways.
Oh, what would you say is the biggest misconception about healthy eating that you've discovered in your journey?
Well, I think people are so into like counting calories and like, oh, how much grams of fat or whatever does this have in it? But I think really, like, you can consume a lot of these things. Like people think bread is like the enemy, but like, no, if you consume like a homemade like sourdough bread that doesn't have like these seed oils, like if you buy bread at a grocery store, it's going to have all these fillers and seed oils and things that like actually your body is not able to process and break down. And so like those are the things that are going to have you keep the weight on. It's not like, because you can go to Italy, like you're going to Italy, and we've been, and you can eat pasta every day, but because it's pasta that comes from natural sources and without these fillers and these, sprayed down, these chemicals that are on the grains, like your body's going to be able to absorb it and you're going to be just fine.
Yeah, you're going to get skinny.
Yeah.
I'm going to get skinnier when I get to Italy. No, I agree. And I feel the same way. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions here. Something that we do, we've been doing for years now, is I get even my flour for the bread, I get it from India or Italy.
Yeah.
and then tons of research on which one's really good, which one's like the best kind. The gluten, the whole gluten thing. Listen, I get it. I understand. But go try to have einkorn shipped from India or Italy and then see how you feel. And, you know, make it in a bread. It's bread, oil, or bread, butter, salt, water. You know what I mean? Or sometimes people put eggs in it. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, bread is supposed to be very simple.
Yes.
But we've made it the enemy. You know,
if you look at the ingredients of like bread that you buy at the store, it's like the list is like this long.
I can't even pronounce some of the things on there. So I agree with you. I think the misconception is this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. When in reality, if you flip it over and you see on the label, first of all, don't even buy something that has a label on it. How about we buy things, whole ingredients, and then cook them at home, right? Something that you have to assemble and put together, I think, is the way to go, is the healthier option. What changes have you made to your family's diet and lifestyle that you found the most impactful for your kids' well-being?
I think it's just learning to read labels and like understand ingredients. So this is like a skill I didn't know until I was like in my 20s, but Cairo will even tell you, like my older son, that if we look at an ingredient, I'm like, oh, buddy, we can't have this. It has sunflower oil. And he's like, oh, no, sunflower oil, you know?
He's so cute. He's so cute.
So he gets it. And, like, it's not just, like, I'm telling him, like, you can't have this. Like, I'm explaining to him why. And he's like, well, Mommy, why do people eat this then if it's bad for you? I'm like, well, son, they don't know. No one ever taught them. So, like, we're lucky that you get to learn these things when you're young, because you're going to put your things in your body that honor your body.
Right. I know that not everybody has access to farms or to local farmers markets in their area. Even in an advanced country like America, is just not possible. But I would suggest people to go online and see if there's close by farmers markets, like maybe one state over. I mean, I know there's farms from Pennsylvania, New Jersey that ship here. You know, they'll do that. They'll freeze the stuff and ship it to you. Right. So, like you said, I think you have to start dabbling your toes into it and doing the research behind it, like you did, you know, and see what works best for your family. Okay, what about in terms of food, like gardening and health and making choices? What would be a first step for people there?
I think you just start where you are. I think don't get overwhelmed by the whole process, because, I mean, when you're stressed out, that's like the worst thing for your health. So you're kind of like...
You're right.
Yeah, so just start with what you can do. And like if you live in a condo or an apartment and you don't have a yard, like you can start growing your own little herbs. You know, you can have like little herbs growing in your kitchen by a window or whatever, and just do what you can and focus on what you can do and don't focus on what you can't do.
Yeah.
And start there.
That's a good point you made there. Like sometimes you get so bogged down with stuff. It's like baby steps.
Yes.
And when it comes to health, I will say you're right. Like don't put yourself in such a position that you're overwhelmed, because stress is the number one killer, not the non-organic piece of whatever you just had, you know, like stress is definitely bigger. Can you tell us what growing up in Egypt was like and then moving to America as a young girl, the transition? I mean, Egypt to Iowa, school. You're 7, so you're old enough to remember, right?
Yeah, I was 7, and actually in Egypt, I went to a school that was taught by nuns, and they actually taught English there. So I did know a little bit of English.
Okay.
But I do remember coming to Iowa, and I was like the only brown girl in the school. And I kind of experienced this even in middle school and high school. Like I just feel like I never fit in. But particularly when we first moved to Iowa, I remember like this very specific instance. And, you know, my parents, like I said, like they wanted us to learn English. And so they would play Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers. And I was 7 at the time. And I was like, okay, this is cool. Like we have a TV even, and like and I'm watching this and I'm learning English. And I remember going to school and being like, hey guys, Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers. And they're like, that's for babies.
Oh my God.
And I kind of like think about that, and I'm like, that's kind of like how I just feel like my childhood was. And then just like never really belonging to a specific group. You know, as a child, you try to kind of fit in. It's just like natural to try to do that. And then realizing later on that like, no, it's actually good to be different. And that's actually your superpower, that you never fit into anything. Yeah. And I feel like that's kind of how we kind of ended up where we're at, is like, we're not going to just follow the norms and the culture of society, because we are different and we think differently and we experience life in a different way. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
I also think you have a much more open mind, allowing other people to be different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you don't box people in either, because you know what that feels like.
Yeah.
With that being said, do you feel like you have any trauma from your childhood? Not fitting in? Or I ask because I've gone through the same experiences, but from like preschool onward. And even though my parents were here for a while before then, they were still immigrants like yours.
Yeah.
They wanted to preserve the culture at home. And then like whatever they learn about America and the culture, they'll learn at school. So for me, I would go to school not knowing what shows to watch, I would pick up from other kids and then come home and be like, Mom, I want to watch that. Mom, I want to watch MTV. And she's like, what's MTV? No, you're not watching MTV. You know? So for me, it was the opposite, where I would try to fit in by learning from what everybody else was doing in school, and then come home and kind of school my parents on that.
Right.
Usually it was, no, you can't do that. No, you can't watch that. No, you can't wear that, and you can't eat that. But that's how I was. But I did always feel like the odd one.
Like you felt like you were never really like part of like a
for sure. That didn't come for me till when I got comfortable in my own skin. I would say late 20s, early 30s for sure, but it was late 20s where I became very comfortable in my own skin. I branched out. I was living in bigger cities. I was meeting more people. Then you start to see, because I was not the most, it's not New York,
not diverse.
But when you start to move around and you start to meet other people, then you see, oh, the world's very big. I'm not so odd and I'm not so different. There's other people like myself. But do you think that that's important for kids to feel like they belong somewhere?
Yes, you're right. Because going through that experience and not seeing other people that look like you is like, it can be very confusing. Mm-hmm. And Russell, my husband, and I talk about this all the time because our kids don't look like a lot of people that live in Miami, where we live. So I think travel has been an important part of that, is that they can go to other places and see that like, okay, well, this is just where we live, but we are citizens of the world, and like we can travel to these places and you can see other people that look like you.
Yeah.
And so I think travel has been an important piece to that.
Yeah.
And I think also little things like, in the stories that they read, like one thing I've gotten into recently is children's books. And like I've started kind of working on my own and everything, but just seeing like in the stories that they read that kids that look like them as well. Because
okay, I see.
And I think that's actually important. It seems like a small thing, but I think it actually sticks with them. Like they're very visual, and so they see this and then they internalize it. So,
and also like raising them with confidence. Like you fit in, you're fine. Like it's even if you stand out or stick out a little bit, it's not a bad thing. Like you are a part of this. You are, like you said, a citizen of the world. Like this is, you're not that different. We really aren't that different when you really peel the layers. When you were going down the rabbit hole and doing all this, did you go back and think about your childhood when you were in school?
Yes.
Did you like school?
No, I hated school. Yeah. And I was always like, I always kind of zoned out, and like, I have an older sister and she was like a TA, like a teacher's assistant in one of my classes sometimes, and she would make fun of me. She'd be like, you were just in your own world, like all the other kids would be starting to do something, and I'm like, I think I intuitively knew that like this wasn't for me, and like I wouldn't really like pay attention, but you kind of learn the game of school. Like you kind of learn like how to take tests, how to get good grades, like just by doing the minimal.
Yep.
But it was never something that was fulfilling for me, and I hated going to school. Like I remember you'd have a snow day, like we lived in Seattle growing up, and every once in a while you would get that snow day, and I would just remember feeling like so much relief, like, oh, we don't have to go to school today.
What's your perspective on the problems with traditional education systems that led you guys to go into homeschooling?
So we moved to this area in Miami, and ironically enough, part of the reason why we chose this area is because it is known to have some of the best schools in the country even. And so we never actually considered homeschooling as a thing. Like I like to say that like I didn't choose that life, it chose me, because we didn't have any other options. So when my son was like 2, people were like, oh, so where's your son gonna go to kindergarten? And I'm like, I don't know, like he's only 2. Like, why do I have to think about this now? And, come to find out that like, well, the good kindergartens have like a preschool program. And if you don't get into the preschool program, then you might not get into the kindergarten program. And you have to start applying like a year in advance. So it's like this whole like competitive thing, and you have to interview, and it's pretty like intense process. So around the time he was like 3.5 or so, we started doing tours of some of like the good schools in our area. And I don't know, every time we left one of the tours, like I just had a very unsettled, like there were beautiful classrooms and beautiful like state-of-the-art buildings and all this stuff. But like I always had this feeling after I left, and I was like, something like nagging me like this, like this doesn't work for us. And I think there was 2 reasons why. And the first being is that like, I want my children to grow up with our values, not someone else's values. And you hear the stereotype that like kids are like sponges, they absorb everything. But when you have kids, you see that they really do. Like you actually can watch them in real time, observe something, and then like play it out and reenact it. And like they learn through observation, they learn through imitation. And so like just the thought of like my little child who's like such a sponge, like going out into the world and And like in these classrooms where you're learning the values of the school, you're learning the values of the teacher, and even what other kids are bringing from home, which you don't have any control over that. And so that bothered me. And then the second thing was I just couldn't wrap my mind around the fact that my child, who loves to climb trees and pick up sticks and collect sticks and dig in the dirt, that they would be confined to the same four walls all day long.
Yeah.
That was really the part I think that hit the hardest for me. But I wanted at the end of the day to be able to raise my own children the way I wanted to. So at first it was like, okay, maybe like they're too young. Maybe he's too young. Maybe we'll wait till he's like 7 or 8 and kind of like reassess the situation. So we knew that it wasn't going to work with him being young. And then also I kind of started to go down the rabbit hole, which like I like to do sometimes.
We all like to do that.
Yeah. Where did the school system start? Like, where did this even, like, what is the history of it? Where did it come? I think it's important to always understand the history of where something came from. So, if you dig back into the 1800s, like it was normal to like it was the only thing people did. They taught their kids at home, or they learned in the church, or they hired tutors. And it really wasn't until like the early 1900s that this education system that was founded by the Rockefellers came into play. And this was all at the height of the Industrial Revolution. So the school system is essentially, if you look at it, is designed like factories. So you have the bells that ring. You have the kind of assembly line kind of, way that desks are set up. You have kids that are grouped by their manufacture date. They're like you're in the exact same age group. And everything about it is very like teaching children how to be able to work in a factory and not to follow. Obey authority, yes. Follow instructions. It doesn't give a child a chance to be creative or be entrepreneurial or to think critically. It's more like do what you're told, listen to, the authority, and that's how it's going to be. And I definitely, after that, I was like, no, this is not the system I want my child to be in.
It's an institution is how I see it, right?
It is.
It's another form of, you don't know it, you might not feel it, but control.
Yeah.
It's how they control your family.
Yeah.
It's how they control the future taxpayers. That's what they're doing in that school. And I agree with you. I had the same feeling too. Whenever we had a half day or like a snow day or something, now I can look back and say that was anxiety. I didn't even know what anxiety was. Too young to know, right? I don't even think my mom knew what the word anxiety existed, but like I just remember feeling like relief.
Yeah.
And I didn't have anxiety the night before. But every day, the night before I'd have to go to school or go do something in school, there was always this uneasy, unrest feeling. And you know what I often wonder when I see other kids? I'm like, do they feel that?
Yeah.
I think that like the kids in our families, do they get like anxious before they have to get up and go to school and take a test? Like, do they live with that anxiety? Because I know I did. It wasn't outwardly obvious, but I remember feeling it. Like I remember knowing, I have to do something tomorrow. I have public speaking tomorrow. I have to get up tomorrow. And to sit there for almost 6 to 8 hours in a desk. The only walk you do is from one classroom to the next.
Yes.
It's mind-boggling to me that this is what we have allowed ourselves to succumb to be honest with you. And we haven't questioned it. We didn't question it.
Right.
Why didn't our parents and grandparents question this?
Right.
What was the story that was sold in the 1900s when this came on? I don't know. Maybe you can tell me. Was it because during the Industrial Revolution, like the fathers were going back to work, and I don't know, when did you have the women movement, and then women were also working? So then you have your child at home. Who's going to take care of your child?
Exactly. I think it
school
was.
System?
And I remember reading that it wasn't actually fully accepted at the time. People were like, this is never going to work. So I think now it's fully accepted, but I think at the time there was people that didn't like the idea. But I think it just became such the norm that we just accepted. And it's funny that people look at homeschoolers as the outside thing to do when it was really actually that was the norm forever until.
I also feel to be a well-rounded individual, you need your mom, you need your dad, you need your other family members, you need that connection with the aunts and uncles and grandparents. Not everybody's lucky enough to have that part, I understand that. But you need that interaction and that social interaction and that back and forth. But if for the first 18 years or 20 years, you only have it with your peers, your age group, what kind of developmental progress can you possibly have? And I say that because you and another friend of ours, homeschool their kids, and I've told you this multiple times. I see the difference. I literally, as an outsider who doesn't have, I see it, how your 5-year-old engages and how another 5-year-old who goes to school engages. No judgment there.
Right.
But you're trying to tell me that all the money you guys are paying in like institutional or regular schooling or traditional schooling, whatever, or not, you think that's better? I don't think so.
Yeah,
the proof is otherwise, in my opinion.
Which is funny because I think like that's the question that you get asked the most.
Yeah.
When you tell people you homeschool, they're like, well, what about socialization? Like,
No. Your kids are social.
Yeah.
I mean, they're more social than I am. Let's put it that way. They can hold a very intelligent conversation. You can talk to your kids like I can talk to them like I can talk to Brian sometimes.
Yes. And that's because they are around, not just they're around adults, they're around teenagers, they're around in our homeschool co-op, like you have mixed age classrooms, and like that's how real life is. You're never just only socializing with people that are your exact same age. That's manufactured, and that's not real life.
Yeah.
And so like life is meant to be lived like in tribalism. You have the 10-year-old who helps out the 8-year-old, and the 8-year-old that teaches the 5-year-old, and you know what I mean? Like people look out for each other, and you can relate to people in a different way by teaching them. And that's actually one of the best ways to learn is by teaching.
That's how you learn real communication.
Yeah.
That's how you learn emotional intelligence. Not two kids both acting like they're 4 years old and going at each other, and they're basically learning that from each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like the blind leading the blind.
Yeah.
Like you have two 5-year-olds trying to teach each other socialization. They don't know how to socialize.
Yeah. And the reason I bring that up is because that's another thing that people bring up is like, well, don't you think that you're going to rob them of their childhood then if they're just around adults or not around kids their age? It's like, no, they have plenty of time to socialize with kids their age, as I know your kids do that. It's not robbing them of anything. It's actually giving them more.
Yes.
I think you're exposing them to more than what a school, a traditional school has to offer. I think that kids are exposed to more stuff when they're homeschooled because I watch you guys. They're what, 5, 3, and 2, 5, 4,
1,
and
4,
2.
and 5. Yeah. Zuriel's
1, 4, and 5.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, just tell me the countries. I know we were in Saudi together.
And Abu Dhabi.
Oh, Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
Where else have you taken them?
Egypt.
Brazil?
Yeah.
Egypt.
Egypt, Brazil, Morocco.
Morocco.
Yeah, I think
And these kids ask you for like the food from those places.
Yeah.
They remember. You know, people are like, oh, they're not going to remember. I'm not going to waste my money on taking them here. They're not going to remember. No, they're going to remember. Trust me, they're going to remember because I was taken to other countries when I was like 3, 4, and 5. And I do remember, I might not visually remember everything, but I remember like tasting something and liking it. I remember the people that I was around. I remember the first time I met my grandmother, believe it or not. I was like 3 or 4. Like I remember certain weird like interactions, and my mom would be shocked, and I'm like, Mom, there was a green lamp in that room. And she's like, how do you remember that?
Yeah.
Like you do remember, trust me, don't say that lightly, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that makes kids very, very adaptable, very well-rounded.
Yes.
Not to mention, it gives them the opportunity to really discover who they are and what they like. When you're putting someone in a box over here and exposing them to 10 things, because the school system, I'm just using, you know, like 10 things is all you get to see here.
Yeah.
And you say, you got to pick out of these 10 things of what you want to be in life and what you can and cannot do.
Right.
Well, you're not tapping into this kid's highest potential now.
Right.
Right? What if this kid's like a genius or a savant that you don't even know, right? You're stifling their growth right now, but you're homeschooling them, and you've got Capoeira, is that how you say it? Yeah. You've got that, you've got karate, you've got jiu-jitsu, you've got outside playtime, you're learning how to garden, you're doing math, science, English, whatever the case may be, and you're going at their pace. Not every other kid's pace. Not all kids learn at the same stage.
Yes.
So I feel as though the traditional school route is hindering.
Yeah.
Whereas the homeschooling one is actually like giving you wings to fly,
Yes.
is how I see it.
Well, because you have more time for the enrichment. So kids are in school for what, like 6 to 7 hours a day in a traditional school. And that's because they have to stay at the pace of the whole group. You know, you have to like make sure, you know, this child can, you know, like you can't move any faster than the slow, you know, like the kind of the slowest person in the room. So it takes 6 to 7 hours to get through everything. Whereas with a homeschool day, we only spend, well, my kids are little, so we only spend like 30 minutes to an hour on the academic stuff. Even for older kids that I know, they get through all their academic stuff in 2 hours. And then you have the rest of the day to focus on the enrichment, which is like the real life, like things that you can work on.
Right, right. So because someone can like really just, how do we make it relatable? And so like you have your parents that live close by, and then you have help. But the average American family cannot afford help or teachers for all different things, you know? And so to somebody like that, what would you say? Or for people, you know, wanting to do this, but then saying, oh, I can't afford it.
Yeah.
What would you say?
I think that for me, like my journey has been that like I can't afford it. So it'd be unfair to speak, you know, on behalf of those people. But I will say that in our homeschool co-op, like there are a lot of parents that I know that do have jobs and, you know, they just find ways to be flexible. I think since COVID, a lot of people work remotely a little bit here, you know, and you kind of find ways to like be on your laptop while your kid is in jiu-jitsu or, you know, get things done when you can. So I think like figuring out like if there is flexibility in your schedule is one thing, but also when it comes to like how much it costs, I think people don't realize also like when you homeschool, you can apply for scholarships. So my kids, even, like regardless of you know, your status, yes, you get like about $8,000 a year that you can spend towards music teachers. So like we put all that money towards like music teachers and things like that. So if you look at like an average private school where you're paying like $30K per kid, but really you can get help for $8,000 and like apply that towards like something that you are personally curating for them. Yeah. So there are resources.
Or they're showing interest in, so it's going to be what they want to do.
And there's more also, like I should say that there's more hybrid versions of homeschooling where there are like kind of drop off homeschool, micro school kind of programs where you can drop off your kid for maybe like 3 hours and then like do the rest of the education at home. So there's so many resources now. Like homeschooling used to be, I think it's up to like 5 million people are homeschooling. So there's so many different programs and things you can do that are more hybrid approaches.
So there's more flexibility, there's more options, there's more programs. It is affordable. You can make time because there's a flexibility in programs. You just have to do the research and kind of dig around to find those things in your area. And so it's safe to say that I don't think people who are interested in doing this, I don't think that they should feel overwhelmed or deflated that they can't because it's too expensive or that it's just like, oh my God, all day with the kids. No, there's other options for you out there.
Yeah.
You just have to do some research and find them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. How do your children spend their days and how does their learning differ from conventional? So maybe we can touch more on like, what does a typical day or a typical week look like?
So there's not really a typical day and it's always evolving. But so like I just mentioned, like the 2-hour day, like you can get through all the academics in 2 days and then everything else is enrichment. So, and I like to see myself as not just their homeschool teacher, but as the curator of their education. And so as the curator of their education, first thing I need to figure out is like, what's their learning style? And I think a lot of people don't even think about these things. And it's like, I read this great book and it talked about how, okay, so you have your auditory learners, your visual learners, and your kinesthetic. And I feel like it's very simple, but once you figure that out, like you can kind of determine the curriculum or what you do based on that. So
for your kids, are they all the same or are they different?
No, they're all so different.
Really?
They're a night and day. So Cairo, my firstborn, he's a very auditory learner. Like I can just read to him and he'll be able to like regurgitate that information back to me. It's incredible. I wish I could do that. And then my second child, he is very much sensory, like kinesthetic learner.
Okay.
So for him, like we don't have to do, but Montessori we have found has been so effective for him because Montessori is very hands-on, it's tactile, like he's very like, you know, like sensory kind of oriented. And so for him, we have a Montessori teacher. She only comes twice a week. So like that's kind of like, you can kind of dabble in different things. And so what we do is like we find somebody who's really good at what they do. And like, you know, you find the wise of your community and you have them come.
Yeah.
And then they can not only teach them, but they can teach you how to do that. So she's taught me like, okay, these are tools that work well for him and this is what works. And, you know, she's an expert. She's been doing it for 20 years. Like there's no way I could have that kind of knowledge, you know, no matter how much I read about it. So kind of like being able to realize that you need community and outsource things. So she comes just twice a week and she works with him and then she kind of teaches me like what I can do to help him throughout the week as well. Because he is more, you know, a tactile learner. Cairo, he is, like I said, he's auditory. So I've adopted more of the classical method with him. And so we read classical books together. And so right now we're reading Chronicles of Narnia and he can just sit there and listen forever. And it's like so fun for him. And everyone's like, what, he's 5, like he can't. And like, no, he doesn't understand everything, but like, you know, the classical method of learning is like more that they pick up on the flow of the language. And then like, you know, you start to kind of, you hang mental pegs, if you will, like, and then once you reintroduce it later on, like he'll be like, oh, that's where I heard that before. So kind of introducing them to that kind of language early on so that they can be prepared for it when it comes up later.
Zuriel probably just observes.
She is right now. She's very visual. I think like I might have one of each.
Okay.
So yeah, she's very.
But like
visual.
when they're doing their thing, because she's just one or almost two.
She's
right?
one, yeah.
A one, and she just observes. Because I saw her interacting with them. She watches them, but then she also has her own little personality.
Yeah.
So she branches out and kind of like tells them what to do sometimes too. You know, like through her noises and like hand motions. But I will say, here's a question I have. Because I love Chronicles of Narnia, like I've always like read the books and watched the movies.
Yeah.
You don't have TVs in your house.
Yeah.
Your kids have never grown up with TVs.
Right.
Can Cairo watch the movie at some point? At some point.
Yeah, I think Russell and I have talked about this. I think once we do get through the books, like it would be cool for him to
See that come to life.
Yes.
Right on TV. But explain the whole TV situation because I am sick of seeing kids on their iPads and their cell phones. Who am I to be sick of it? Let me just say it's out there. It's happening a lot.
Yeah.
And when I do ask parents and I do talk to them, they're like, yeah, I just don't want to hear my kids screaming anymore.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted. I'm working all day. And it's like, fine, here, just have your 20 minutes and let me just eat dinner with their father in peace. I understand that.
Right.
But your kids don't ask for their iPads or their cell phones or their TVs.
No, because they don't have the option.
They never never saw that, right?
No, exactly. Well, so we had a TV in California when Cairo was 1. And then when my husband got traded to Carolina, we moved to Carolina and we didn't have a TV in that house. And then when we moved to Miami, we didn't move any of our furniture over. So we were like, oh, we'll just get a TV later on. Like, let's just like not have a TV for a while. And then like the more time went on, we're like, this is nice. Like this has freed up so much time for us, like just as adults. And then just thinking about how kids, like I said, are so impressionable and they're sponges. And like, we didn't want to even introduce that. So we're like, why don't we just see what it's like to just not have a TV? So we just never got one. And it's honestly, and I think I know what people are saying when they're like, oh, my kids they're screaming and they're begging for this because once a kid has something in their head that they want, like they're just gonna keep bugging you. But like the fact that they don't even have that option to ask for the TV, like they just find other ways to entertain themselves. Like they'll
play with each other. They'll start to sing. They'll start to, talk with each other, make up stories. Like they do. They start to become very imaginative, actually.
Yes.
And I've seen that firsthand with your kids. I guess another point to make here is that I've seen is, well, what people do say to me, well, what are you going to do when they're older? And then because you restricted them from all these things, now they're just going to binge watch TV or binge watch video games. Here's what I say, even though I have no business saying this. But I'm like, it's like me. When I was growing up, I wasn't given meat. There was no meat in my home.
Yeah.
So when I grew up, when I went to school, I questioned it, but I didn't want it.
Right.
Because I never had it.
Yeah.
Okay. And I got older and older and older. Same thing kind of stuck with me. And I think with your kids, I understand that when I went to school, though, I was too young to be introduced to something that quick, that kids would give in to something like that. But if you're homeschooling your kids up till 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, that's a long enough time. You got the first 7, 8 years in at least. You have now, I don't like using this word, but you've programmed this child to not desire the Reese's, to not desire TV, to not want to sit in front of a PlayStation and play for 6 hours. It's not a thing.
Right.
They probably can't even do it, to be honest with you.
No.
They're going to get like, why am I sitting here for 6 hours? This isn't normal. I move, I run, I jump, I play.
Yeah.
I don't have to do this. Am I right?
No, absolutely. Because I think people like are scared of boredom, and people are like, oh, you have to always entertain your kids. But I think boredom is actually a good thing because then it forces them to be creative and figure something out. Like yesterday, what they wanted to do, and this was all their idea, they picked up a bunch of sticks from the yard and they just wanted to paint them. And they painted them, and then the next day they wanted to they started to make like a house with it or whatever. I just feel like that wouldn't have happened if they had the option of having a TV, because TV is easy. It's just, you know what I mean? It thinks for you.
No, they wouldn't even want to go to the farm with you or go to the farmer's market. They say, Mommy, we're going to play video games. Give us an hour, give us 2 hours.
Yeah.
And that's it. There you go. There goes the whole day. I totally get that. Is your plan to homeschool them till, 18?
I think, like I said, at first it was going to be something they did while they were young, but I'm like, I don't want to put a time limit on it, but I feel like as long as it makes sense, we're going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And then, when they get to a certain age, like if they decide they want to go to school, so my brother, he homeschools his kids as well. And
who, by the way, is very sharp too. I've talked with him in Abu Dhabi at the game. I was talking to him.
Yes, he's very mature, and he knows what he wants, and he's already interning into in the field that he's interested in. But his sister, when she turned 14, she was like, I want to go to high school. And she was just like, she was interested in the social like aspect of it, and like that's fine. So she's going to high school, and she's like, it's not for the academics. She's, you know,
But so it's letting the kids choose for themselves.
Let them choose, and maybe you have a kid that's interested in like the whole social, and maybe some kids are not because they already know kind of like my nephew, like, they know what they want to do, and they're not interested in, and they're not that they're antisocial. Like he's actually the most popular kid on the block, and he plays with all the kids. They get done with school, they hang out with him at his house, and like he's super social. But he's like has no interest in going to school. He's like, why? I can get my homeschool stuff done in 2 hours, and I can do whatever I want for the rest of the day.
Yeah. How do you structure the academic portions around their education while still allowing for freedom and exploration? You touched on this, but I think to go a little deeper in this, I would say, you say you can get through the academics in about like 2 hours, right? Yeah. But in school, people take 6-7 hours a day for what? How many months out of the year? 9 months out of the year. What would you say to somebody who's probably like, well, Summer, what about math? What about English? Like, are they up to par with kids their age? You know, is 2 hours enough?
It's more than enough. So, I mean, just as an example, my 5-year-old, I took him, so I do take him to a reading tutor once a week. Again, like I do the tutors like once a week for 30 minutes, just so I can like make sure he's where he's supposed to be. And then like I can kind of pick the teacher's brain about like, hey, he's working on this right now. Like, how can I help him learn these kind of, you know, this concept or whatever. And so with his math teacher and his reading teacher, they're both like, I don't know what you're doing, but he's way far ahead of where his peers are. So like, I don't worry about that. Like I know that he gets everything he needs and even more.
And is ahead of the game.
And he's ahead of the game, yeah. And most homeschool kids are. Like there are these studies, you know, that show that they are more prepared.
So you guys go above and beyond though, way past traditional schooling, because you also incorporate physical developmental skills in like movement and whatnot, which I also experienced firsthand on the ground at the farm with their jiu-jitsu, capoeira stuff going on. Can you explain that a little bit, how you guys got into that?
Yeah. So
how do you decide on what you want them to do?
Yeah, so I think the beauty, obviously, of having the 2 hours is you have so much time for the enrichment. And so, like, yeah, you said movement is very important. And I think a lot of people would assume, since my husband played professional football, that we'd put them in, like, little league, whatever, football or baseball or soccer. And we've decided not to go that route. You know, my husband understands more a lot about, like, the body and movement and things, but he's like, these kind of things kind of teach you, they pigeonhole your body to only be able to do certain types of movements.
To the extreme.
To the extreme that you're only going to use it for that. But what we've really been more impressed with and interested in for them is martial arts. So martial arts is great for their mental development too, but also like you learn how to, like in jiu-jitsu, you learn how to fall. And I've actually seen like my kids fall and they use this tactic where you know what I mean? In jiu-jitsu, they kind of slam the ground. And they
also distribute the weight.
Yes, you distribute the weight.
And you know how to fall. And believe it or not, everyone listening, there is a way to fall.
There is, where you don't hurt yourself.
When you told me that and I was reading about that, I thought, there's adults and older adults who need to learn how to do that.
Yes.
So why are we not teaching these basic life skills to everybody as a child? Isn't this something that's basic, that's like a part of our formation that we should be learning?
Yeah.
Instead of falling when we're 50, 60, 70 years old and then getting hip replacement surgery and all this is happening. It's like God, the universe, whatever you believe in, and the human body and all these tools and tricks and these ancient things like martial arts and all this, it's here for us to use. Mm-hmm. And we don't, because we're so stuck with the traditional route of school.
Yeah.
But everything is there to give us a very long, healthy, happy, sustainable, active, free life. And I think that we've succumbed to what's been fed to us.
Yes.
Instead of going outside the box. I saw your kids, they're way more flexible than other kids.
Yeah.
And the way that they play and the way that they move on the ground. And I mean, but they could probably climb all the trees at this point, right? Like they're very... You mentioned tribal stuff. I don't like to say that word because I feel like some people will take it the wrong way, but it's like they have all the resources within themselves to become very self-sustaining individuals as they get older.
Yeah.
And isn't that the point of life?
Yes, exactly. That these are skills that you can have for the rest of your life that'll serve you. And like self-defense, like we don't like to think about it, but it is important. You have to be able to defend yourself. You don't know what kind of world we're, like, not to sound like, these terrible things could happen, but like you have no idea what could happen where you have to defend yourself. And I think people also worry like, oh, if you put your kids in martial arts, are they going to be violent? But I think it's actually the opposite, because you're not learning to strike. Like you're actually learning how to defend yourself if somebody were to come up to you. And they do teach them in jiu-jitsu, like, okay, the first thing you're going to do is try to diffuse the situation. You're going to say, stop, don't do that,
Yeah.
you know? And then like they still are approaching you, then you can grab their hands and say, stop, don't do that. And
Yeah.
but then like if things escalate, like you know exactly what to do so you can get yourself out of that position.
Yeah, I don't think it makes you more violent at all.
Not at all.
I think it teaches you how to handle those situations so you don't react with violence.
Exactly.
And at the same time, you can defend yourself if you want to. And also, both practices are very big on mental strength.
Yep.
Reading and gauging the situation. These are all things that kids don't even get access to till they're 9, 10, 11, 12, maybe in their teens. But your kids are doing it now for life reasons, right? To sustain themselves.
Yeah, so with Capoeira, it's really cool too because Capoeira is an Afro-Brazilian martial arts. So they get part of the, you know, I'm from Egypt, my husband is from Nigeria, so they get some of that kind of like African, they do a lot of like dance and music with it too. It's not just defense, it's actually like a very like holistic, like kind of African arts. It's really cool.
Something I just thought of too while speaking with you is, whereas most of the world sits in a desk till they're 18, 19, no, actually well past 20s these days, every single day, your kids are not, they're constantly moving.
Yeah.
You know, it's like 2-3 hours of schoolwork and then we're out, like actually using our muscles, our nerves, our brain, our bodies, doing different things. It's been proven, being in a routine, the way that I was raised, school, Monday through Friday, this time, you have a higher chance of Alzheimer's or dementia or neurological issues when you're in a routine, contrary to what people want to believe. Whereas if you are going your entire life like your kids are, every day is different. Everything's malleable.
Yeah.
You're doing different things, moving in different ways, using different parts of your brain. That rewires your brain. Well, for them, it's not rewiring. For them, it's creating new neural pathways and new synapses in the brain.
Yeah.
Which if people Google this, they can look this up. Literally in real time, you'll see the brain nerves firing in different areas when you do different things, leading to higher IQ, better health, better emotional intelligence, better mood, no anxiety, no depression. But traditional schools don't talk about this or don't teach you this.
Yeah, they just have recess for like 15 or 30 minutes a day, and that's definitely not sufficient. Like kids need so much more movement than that.
How do you deal with, and I'm asking this because you did tell me the story already, but I think it's important for people to hear, Halloween?
Halloween, yeah, I think we just teach them that there are things that are part of our culture and values, and like we don't participate in Halloween. It has nothing to do with us. It has nothing to do with our people. This was something that, you know, people in this culture celebrate and they dress up and, you know, and it's interesting for them, but it's not something that we engage in. And it's.
But didn't you get candy once?
Oh yeah. So when we go to our homeschool co-op and, you know, kids bring like the candy.
Right.
And they don't do candy at all.
Right.
And like, they've never asked for it. People are like, oh, how can you deprive your children of, you know.
It's not depriving if you're
like,
saving them from health issues and missing teeth and like root canals. Like, I don't think people understand you're not depriving this kid, you're giving them a better life.
Yes,
but a better quality of life.
And if they don't ever have it, like they're not interested in, like they just kind of see it and so the funny story was that he got some candy in the class and he was like, Mommy, can we go home and throw it away? Yeah. Like he was just excited to go.
That was so cute. Oh my God, that's adorable.
That's cute.
Fabrics.
Okay.
Right? 'Cause we're into the holistic natural living and whatnot.
Yeah.
Just recently, I got 100% all linen bedding for us, okay?
Yeah.
Normally I do 100% Egyptian cotton, like pure cotton, okay?
Yes.
Not the synthetic, not the cooling, self-heating, self-cooling stuff. Like that disgusts me on a personal level, but it was always cotton. Try to sleep on 100% linen.
How was it? I've been thinking about this.
So Brian's not a good sleeper, right?
Yeah.
Me, I can kind of sleep like a brick everywhere. But we both woke up and you know what he says to me? He doesn't know what I did. He's oblivious to what bedding is going on.
Yeah.
He's like, I slept so deep last night for the first time in like years. And I'm like, did you take extra magnesium? Like, did you do something? He's like, no. He leaves. He goes to work. As I'm going through my day, I'm like, oh my God, it's
The linen.
it's the linen.
Yes.
I start Googling the natural frequency hertz of linen. And like, I'm getting goosebumps right now. And of cotton. Cotton's like 100 or 50, right? Everything else is like 0. So if you use it, if you sleep on anything else, you're not giving to your body. But linen is 5,000.
Yes. Linen and wool are 5,000.
Well, wool would be very hot in Miami.
Yeah, no, you don't want to do wool, but like those are the two highest frequency. And I just went down this whole rabbit hole too.
Yes.
And people are always kind of thinking because of like I come from the NFL life, like, oh, luxury, whatever. But I'm like, okay, I see luxury so differently now. And it's not about like what name brand, but I'm like, when it comes to fabrics, this fabric thing is so real. Like, so there's this study, which I think is what you came across, and it tests the frequency of different fabrics. And so wool and linen have the highest frequency of 5,000, but things like polyester and like spandex and nylon and all that
Let's
stuff.
talk Lululemon clothes.
Yes.
Aloe, Athleta. Don't get me wrong, I do wear these things sometimes, but I can't believe that I've been wearing these fabrics and working out in them and then like showering and putting on a whole new fresh pair of those kinds of fabrics. That's what freaked me out.
Yeah, because there's microplastics in these things, and your pores are open, you're sweating, and your skin is your biggest organ, really. So everything is being absorbed in your skin when you're working out.
But sorry, I cut you off.
No.
Okay, so the study?
Yeah, no, so the study, I came across that recently, and like I said, we're always trying to like evolve and like how can we live, better. And I've just been really fascinated, but then when you start to like, okay, like I should switch to wearing like more linen and cottons, and like there's not really much like cute, like girly girl or whatever kind of things out there. So that's a project that we've been interested in, like trying to develop something like this. So we're really interested in like figuring out like cool, like good fabrics and how to make like cool designs out of them.
Stylish clothes,
like
but
fun
with like
designs.
that kind of good fabric.
Yes.
That's what we need. That is definitely a pain point. I only just recently found a company that gives 100% cotton leggings and like workout clothes. There's like 5% spandex in there though.
And you have to, I think you
have to get that form fitting situation because cotton is not like that.
Yeah.
But I was blown away. I mean, my mom always said cotton, cotton, cotton. Linen was something I found on my own. Like one thing that I found. But I was blown away at how good we sleep. Like, and it's been consistent since last Friday. Like you just lay there and you just go. I'm actually thinking about changing. The sheets are 100% cotton. Everything else, like the comforter or the sheet underneath it is linen. So now I'm thinking about turning all of it into linen. And even the pillowcase. My pillowcase is silk. But I think I should probably change that too now. But yeah, no, I think it's very important, and we don't pay any attention to that.
People have no idea.
People have no idea. But yeah, what do you do? Because it's not cute. So I clearly haven't changed my wardrobe yet. But
well, jeans are usually cotton. These are like
jeans are okay.
Cotton. This is
cotton too. Yeah. So today I'm okay, but normally it's like
it's hard.
Yeah,
like
it is
find.
It is very hard.
Cute stuff that's like good fabric. That's.
And people think it's like, woo-woo or whatever. No, you feel the difference. I feel the difference when I wear linen. I don't know if you do.
Absolutely.
I do.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm breathing.
And you notice too, like when you wear like spandex and these, like you notice like certain smell, like at least I have, I don't know.
Especially females, because ours are tight, right? Ours are like body hugging clothes. Men, they can get away with it because they have like a looser fit, even if it's the same fabric. But I mean, and I know a lot of women actually, I don't know if you do, that are now in their 30s and 40s, they're like, I can't wear like tight, spandexy, Lululemon type clothes. It like makes you feel like on edge almost. Yeah. Like it does something to you. And I think years and years of wearing those clothes, it's kind of disbalanced the body and like the electrical current that our body naturally runs on. Yeah. Clearly, because now we find out that fabric has
frequency, just like everything else.
Just like everything else does.
Life.
Yeah.
It was really interesting in this study. I think her name is Janet. I can't think of her name, that did this study. But she found that like polyester, the frequency of polyester was like 30 something, I think. And it was the same frequency as someone who was like dying, like a sick person that was dying. Like the same exact frequency. So if you even just think about that, like that's what you're putting on your body. Like that's the frequency that you're putting on. All day. Yes.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're staying in the thousands now. It's over. At least for 10 hours a day when I'm sleeping, we're sticking to linen. I feel. Is this linen? What is this?
I don't know. I don't think so. It's probably.
Is it some mixed thing? Now I'm going down the rabbit hole. Like everything just turns to linen. Parents are curious about natural approaches to health. Are you comfortable sharing your views on natural remedies or approach to medical decisions for your children? This stems from, I know that you did like an herbal or an herb class or something.
Yeah.
What inspired you to do that?
I think it's because like, when you have kids that are young and they get these weird little ailments and they get sick, and like I just got sick of when the conventional kind of things that you're supposed to do, and I'm like, no, I want to learn like how do I treat these things naturally. And so for example, like when kids get ear infections, a lot of times if you take them to the pediatrician, they're like, oh, antibiotics, like it's just a thing, like antibiotics, and nothing like Antibiotics, like sometimes they are very necessary, but I don't think for ear infections that it's something that it should just be like the go-to, because it does mess up like your biome and
Your gut microbiome.
yeah, all these things. And so with ear infections, you know, I did a lot of research on that, and like really it's as simple as garlic oil. And so we got these garlic oil drops, and every time they'd get an ear infection, you would just give them a couple drops, and like it would always clear up within a couple days, and like no need to do all these antibiotics and things. And so that's kind of where it stemmed from, and just finding little remedies like that. And like, okay, if you see a kid and they're starting to get sick, you can like hear like a little cough or whatever coming, you just a little bit of oil of oregano, things like that, like that, kind of reverting back to ancient wisdom of like, because that used to be normal, like plant medicine. These things used to be normal until again Rockefeller came along and institutionalized medicine, and then like all these books that were about plant medicine were kind of, they became taboo, and they became like, no, it became shunned, and so everything had to go by these petroleum-based medicines, which I think have done a lot more harm than good.
Of course they have. Now you look at how many people are sick and on pills still, you know? It's very apparent that our medical system didn't work the way, I don't even think they intended it to. I think it was just all about making money and becoming profitable, big pharma, of course. With that being said, garlic oil, did you know, if I ever feel like I'm getting a cold or something, which is rare, I usually just go get an IV drip of like, you know, just to get like a hydration.
Yeah.
But if you just take 2 cloves of garlic, chop them up really fine, leave them out for 20 minutes, throw some honey on it, local farmer's market honey, and it's like spicy kind of, unfortunately, but like you won't get sick.
Really?
I've
never tried that.
I haven't taken antibiotics for like a cold or flu or anything in like 6 or 7 years.
So you just cut it up, you're not like cooking it or doing it?
No, you don't cook it because you kill the allicin, I think it's ALLICIN.
Okay.
I could be misspelling that. It's this compound in it that kills whatever's causing the flu or whatever in your system. But there's like little things like that I was raised on.
Oh, that's so
you know,
beautiful.
or taking Mileti powder, which is licorice root, fresh ground up licorice root, not the stuff you buy on Amazon or anywhere else. Get the fresh stuff and break it up, put some honey, black pepper, take your sore throat away in like 2 days. But here we're giving kids red dye 40, red dye 30, XYZ, like food colored Robitussin cough syrup, you know? Like you don't even know what's in it at this point. What's your perspective on vaccinations?
When I was pregnant with my first child, I, like most people, was like, yeah, we're gonna do the vaccine thing. Like it's just what you're taught in school, that these vaccines are what you need to do. And my husband actually is the one that challenged me, and he was like, I don't know about this vaccine thing.
Okay, one tiny second to stop you. Do you watch the news?
No, I don't watch the news.
I don't watch the news either. And I hope you guys just got what I said there. Okay, moving on.
So like you have to understand incentives. And so it really comes down to like, when you get down to it and you start doing critical thinking for yourself, you start really thinking about this critically for yourself, none of it makes any sense.
I don't know anything about them. I just know that I don't like vaccines.
Yeah.
And I know that they're bad for you. That's it.
Yeah. So the way I approached it from the beginning is like, okay, well, I'm going to go through the list of the CDC childhood vaccination schedule, and like my initial thing was like, maybe there's some that like I need to do. So I looked through every single one, and just like any other medical intervention, you study like, okay, well, what are my chances, like the chances that my child could get this disease that is supposed to be protecting them for, and then what are the risks of that particular vaccine. And in every single one, I found that the risks were so much higher than what the actual disease could be. So the MMR is one that is known specifically for African boys to cause a lot of damage. And like that is something that's been hidden by the CDC, and there's books and transcripts of like them admitting this in like a phone call, and it's a real thing. And like people don't understand. People think like, you know, the autism thing is like blown up, but once you've actually met somebody, and I have met people that their child was progressing just fine in life, and they were talking and verbal, and then they go get this MMR vaccine, and then they're never the same. And when you come across stories like that, like you realize that this is a real thing. And moms, and it's so sad for those moms because they can't talk about it. No one's gonna hear their story. They're just gonna be like, oh, like it was just a coincidence, you know, this thing that happened to you.
I started researching vaccines when I was showing a little bit of like autoimmune markers 5 or 6 years back. And I would ask my mom, I'm like, Mom, like, did you guys get me all the vaccines? It's like, you know, my mom is very like on the natural path. She's like, yeah, but we didn't know any better, Nina. Yeah. She's like, I was 22, like new to this country. Like I didn't know, like you just assume everything is like clean and great in this country. She's like, we really didn't know any better when it came to that.
Yeah.
And what I read was that we believe this whole one size fits all method here, whether it comes to calories, protein intake,
Yes.
vitamins and minerals. No, 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 no. Not only does each body need a different form and a different amount of each of these things, it also depends on your genetic makeup. You're absolutely right. Like African Americans, Indians, or if you're European, or if you're fully Caucasian, like born and raised here for generation after generation, our genes are all different. And I do believe in epigenetics. However, I do believe that we do all have different genes. Things can turn on, things can turn off. The good ones can turn on, the bad ones can turn on. And I think that there are certain things in our modern society that are not helpful to all walks of life. What works for my Irish friend doesn't mean it's going to work for me or my body, okay?
Yes.
What she can digest doesn't mean that I can digest it. If a vaccine didn't bother her as a child, doesn't mean that it won't bother me as a child.
Yes.
And this is what the medical community is not talking about. This goes into a completely different topic, but I'll mention it for once. I don't know if you know anything about this, but you know when you get your blood work done? And there's markers like, oh, your A1C1 should be here between these numbers. And if anything above this is too high, your cholesterol, LDL, blah, 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 should be between this. Even those numbers are a one size fits all, right? But if you look at science and you look at a pool of like Indian people, African American people, or Caucasian Eastern European people, and you look at people across the board, a healthy individual, you've put them in a box. So you'll see Indians have higher cholesterol.
Yeah.
A1C1 one marker above.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, you're gonna get diabetes now. And then you look at their diet and you see, this doesn't really make any sense. Like, this is strange, right? They're not taking into account the genetic disposition of everyone's body.
Yes.
And then break it down more. Each person will always be different. You can't have a one size fits all. And now you have newborn babies getting vaccinated with the same vaccines, no matter what their background is,
Yes.
all across the board. There could be, I'll even go as far as this, there could be 2 Caucasian babies completely healthy, and you're giving them vaccines, but what if one's sensitive? You don't take that into consideration.
Yeah.
One can be sensitive to the vaccine and the other one might not be. It's mind-boggling to me. And then what freaks me out even more, because I recently watched my best friend go through this. She had a daughter about 4.5 months ago, is that you as a mom, especially as a first-time mom, like this is where I really, really just like my heart goes out. Like I don't know, moms are superwoman to me, you know? You're going through all these bodily changes that you've never experienced before. No one prepared you for any of this, okay? The physical ups and downs and whatever, and the uncertainty of it all. But it's up to you to educate yourself on the vaccines.
Yeah.
It's up to you to vouch for yourself and to speak up and to advocate for yourself. The day you're about to give birth, they're just pummeling at you and coming at you, taking your kid, wiping it down, doing whatever they're doing. And while you just went through what you went through, this physical and emotional experience, you also have to be like on guard and advocating for yourself and for your baby already out of the gate.
Yeah.
Not even having all the information or knowledge. Like
Yeah.
if you didn't have, you know, the wherewithal to do the research beforehand, which sometimes people don't. It hits them up pretty later in their pregnancy, like, oh no, like I have to think about these things too. Or sometimes they don't, because they're overwhelmed with everything that they're going through.
Yeah.
And so we depend on our medical system, the institution, basically, the government, to have our best interest and have our child's best interest. And nobody questions that. That boggles my mind. You know, they're like suppressing all this information. The whole message of this episode is to do your homework and do your research. Don't let life's responsibilities, you know, work, job, kids, school, this, bog you down so much that you don't do your own research.
Yeah.
It really hurts my heart when I see parents doing the best that they can do, and they are. What parent isn't? Most parents have your best interest at heart. But what are they supposed to do? They're
Right.
working full time. Number one, be more intentional about it. And number two, be prepared to do some homework on it. And don't just listen to or act on what you're easily fed.
Yeah.
You know, like the mainstream doctors, the mainstream media, the mainstream propaganda that's always going on. Don't listen. Don't just blindly listen to things.
Yeah.
Do your own research, do your own homework, and then make a informed decision for yourself and for your family that you feel is right.
Yes.
Because what feels terrible is when later down the road your kid gets sick or you get sick, you know, and then you realize I should have cared more about my health. Shouldn't have given my kid all these candies or whatnot because now they're dealing with whatever issues. You know, there's always I should have, would have, could have. And I'm just wanting to bring awareness to stop now and do your research. It's still not too late because I'm sure there's other things that you can improve in your life and in their life for their betterment.
Absolutely.
How does your approach to natural living connect with your spiritual belief and practices?
Spirituality, not just into our natural living, but into education and everything, and just as a part of our life. So we start out every day, we start out with a prayer. And I think that grounds us for the day and it sets our intention for the day. And it helps us like just connect with the fact that, you know, we believe in that there is a creator and there's something bigger than us in this universe. And I think for kids, like having some sort of a ritual that, okay, this is morning, we're setting our intention, where we pray for things that we're thankful for. We say that, you know, we thank you for this and this. And so I think starting the day off like that is grounding for children. And for us too, like just starting your day with gratitude and just acknowledging, you know, a higher being and something bigger than yourself. So I think when we think about spirituality that way, and when it's not like this religious thing, and so even we use biblical texts for wisdom, and we have our kids kind of memorize it, not as this like kind of rote memorization sort of thing, but as something that can like live inside them, that can be like a compass for them, that they can like, you know, like, so for the boys, they were learning this verse, and it was just like, be strong and courageous, do not be afraid. And they would say it over, be strong and courageous. They would look in the mirror, be strong and courageous, do not be afraid. Cairo, my firstborn, he had, we do public speaking program through our homeschool co-op, and he had his first public speaking thing. And he went up there and he was just like, you could tell he was a little nervous, but like he went through, I was so proud. I was in tears that day. And I was like, Cairo, you did so good. Like, how did you do it? And he was like, well, I just remembered, be strong and courageous, do not be afraid. And it was like, just seeing him recall something, and like, it is something that was like internalized in him, was so beautiful. And there's so many beautiful, you know,
moments like that you get to witness.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's incredible. Tell me a little bit about your real estate career.
Yeah. So when my husband and I first got married, I had my real estate license in Miami. And, you know, with real estate, you kind of have to build your clientele, and it takes a while. And I was kind of like just starting to do really well. And then we got married, and he got moved to Denver. He got traded to Denver. So I ended up I was bored. He was at work all day. So I got my real estate license in Denver also. And then we went to California, and I also got my real estate license there. So I was like a collector of real estate licenses. Yeah. But it's really interesting to see how real estate works in every market. So that's something that I've kept. And we have developed like a real estate portfolio. We have properties all around the country. And so this is something that, you know, I have to kind of balance into the homeschool life, and finding time to deal with tenants. And, you know, I manage all these properties, and I'm looking at investments, and you've seen me on calls trying to deal with certain things that happen in our properties. But I also think it's important, like, to try to involve your children in these things as well. And that's like the cool thing that they can learn while they're homeschooling. So like one of our properties is here in Miami, and so I'll take them with me, and I'm like, okay, this tenant is moving out. This is what this means. This is the rent, and so you can kind of make that into a teachable moment. But it is important, I think, for them to see me doing something like that, so they understand like mommy's not just here to like cater to me, but like mommy has other things that
mommy has her own life. She has her own identity. She does do something outside of this. And I also think for boys, I think that's important for them to see, you know, when they grow up and they have girlfriends or wives, whatever, they can honor those things. Like, you know, she's more than just this. And dad and her mom works together, and like, you know, she blossomed in her own way. And I think that's a very important message to send to especially young boys. But yeah, you not only take time for yourself, you integrate your life with them, but you also have your own career and your own identity. And I know that you're not one of those people who gets like stuck with their identity. You know that it's ever flowing and ever moving, because you have a very spiritual and you're a very self-aware person, but you have figured out a way where everything flows together. People say you can't have it all. You can have it all.
Yes.
I'm so sick of that. People say you can't have it all. So someone just posted recently, Grant Cardone, I think, he said, you can't have it all. You can have it all, just not all at once.
Yes, and there's different seasons in life. Like childhood is so short. People are like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But like childhood is only, you know, like when they're really little until like 7. And then they kind of start doing things more independently, and you can give them projects or whatever. But like this part. And I think like when people are like, well, what about your career? You know, don't you want to do more with real estate? I don't think I'll look back and regret that I didn't do more real estate, but I could definitely see myself looking back, and if I wasn't doing this, and be like, I wish I spent more time with my children. I wish I homeschooled my children. That's what you hear more. People are like, oh, childhood goes by so fast, like spend time with your children and like enjoy every minute, because it does go by really fast. And the regrets that you'll have are not going to be about making, you know, more money doing real estate, but it's going to be about like, how did you know, raise your family?
Also, what's to say that when they're 8, 9, 10 years old or 18 that you don't go do more with real estate? You can.
Yeah.
You can always
Exactly.
continue to build more from here on out. It doesn't, you know, you're right. Phases and cycles of life, I think, is very important, even for moms and women to understand that. And I talked about this on a solo, where we have phases in life. And I think that instead of trying to fit into a box that I am a working mom and I am super mom and I am this, no, like right now I'm all these things, and then there'll be another season, and I can ever change and ever flow with whatever I'm feeling in the moment, you know? That's important to acknowledge, and that's important to celebrate. We don't celebrate that as a society. That's the thing.
Yes.
Our society is not built for mom to take some time off for herself, or say, take some time off to enjoy with the kids or raise the kids or whatever she's feeling what she wants to do, you know? Because then when she goes back, you've got HR looking at it like, what's going on with this gap here, you know? And then you're passed up. But that's what needs to change, I think.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Well,
How
and he
has
had his
becoming
first
a
public
mother impacted your spiritual beliefs? Or how is, you know, like how is having kids, like have it changed your mind on certain things?
One thing I heard that's really interesting about children and spirituality is that the way you speak to your children becomes their inner voice. And I always thought the inner voice was like something different, or, you know, but it's when you realize that you could actually influence what their inner voice sounds like, it changes you, because you want them to have a beautiful inner voice that speaks to them positively, and so it actually makes you change a lot about yourself, and it changes how you speak, it changes how you process through situations where they might be, you know, because kids can be annoying, where they might be annoying you, and you know, like it changes a lot about how you handle yourself. It makes you want to be a better person.
That's actually a really good way to put it. And you know what? I see that sometimes when I'm hanging out with my nephews. I don't want to I'm more of like a, you know, because I don't have kids, so I'm more of a spitfire. But when they're around, I'm happier. I'm like, I don't know. It's weird. You're right. I filter myself, but not like from curse words or things like that. It's not like that. It's more like, no, we can be more chill. You know what I mean? Like naturally you want to be a good example. Naturally you want to be lighthearted and joking and fun and playing. Like naturally you start to, I don't know, for me it happens naturally around them for sure. Not all kids though, I'll say that, but around them it definitely just comes on its own, where I second guess before I say, I think before I say something, right? Or if Brian's like sitting here driving and like speed or does something, like I'm not going to yell at him, because they don't need to, you know what I mean? Like that's not, I don't need to scare them, you know, that's not something for them. So I could see what you mean on a very tiny, tiny scale, not to compare this to your stuff, but that you would want to be a better person, because kids also, they learn by observing.
Yes.
Not by what you tell them.
Yes.
When we have the family kids over, sometimes whatnot, like I'll be drinking juice, or I'll like try to get them to juice fresh juices or something. I won't have bad snacks in the house, you know? Not because I'm trying to teach them or put anything on them, right? That's not the point. The point is like, they just know here it's not. There's no Reese's here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you naturally just want to be better because you want them to be better and see better things.
Yeah, there's a lot more accountability for yourself
accountability.
when you see it that way.
Whereas when you don't have kids, you kind of just do whatever you want, like, you know, yell at him or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's different. And then when they're around, you're like, okay, on my best behavior.
Especially when you homeschool, because it's not like,
for you, it's
you'd be like, where did they get that? You know, like, oh, well, they got it from either me or you, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so like they are mirrors. And so like they help you see your blind spots because they are mirrors. And like, as an example, Cairo, we were working on writing, and like he was just not interested in writing at all. He's like, oh, I don't want to do this writing, whatever. And I was like, why is this kid, like, why won't he write? Because he has great handwriting and he'll, you know, he can do it. And then I kind of thought about it, and I'm like, he never sees me writing, you know? And I'm like, when was the last time I journaled or like I was writing, you know? And so I kind of changed up my morning schedule a little bit. So like when he came into the room or my office or whatever in the morning, I would be like journaling, and he's like, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, journaling. He's like, what's that? And he's like, you wrote all of that? You know, like, you can see like a full page. And then like sure enough, he was like, well, I want a journal. And now he has his own little journal. He was actually we were journaling together this morning. It was really
That's
cute.
adorable.
Yeah.
That is so sweet. Yep, they learn by observing us, and they definitely make us better. Like recently I was in St. Louis, and I took this new camera with me, the 360 that they got me, and I was kind of like hesitant because I got to carry this and vlog this thing around, and I'm very bad with technology. But so I'm in the driveway of my brother-in-law's house, and I'm holding it, not just doing what I'm supposed to be doing, right? And my nephew comes running in. He goes, "Is that a 360?" Right? His excitement, he took it out of my hand and he's looking at it and he's like playing with it. And I think we have footage of this. You know what it made me do? Like where it changed me in that moment is I'm sitting in the passenger seat, like looking back at him and he's playing with it and moving it around and doing whatever. I'm like, why can't I be that excited? I took it as like work and was overwhelmed by it. And then I was just like, my gosh, he's teaching me.
Yeah.
He is teaching me something right now in my moment to look at everything like with childlike enthusiasm,
Yes.
whereas my attitude needed a big shift, because I was like annoyed that I had to do this thing. But we just don't teach them. They teach us too.
That's a beautiful story.
I feel.
Great example.
You know? Oh, wasn't one of your kids born at home?
Yeah.
Like a home birth? It was Zuriel, right?
Yeah.
Or were the other two?
No, so Cairo was born in California in a hospital.
Okay.
He was my first, and like I think as a first-time mom, you're so scared of like what could go wrong. And
Right.
I considered I thought about the home birth thing, but I was like, no, like I'm gonna do the hospital birth, and it was fine. I had a great hospital birth.
Okay.
But when we moved to Miami and I was pregnant with my second, I heard people tell me like, you should consider the home birth thing because like Miami and New York are like known as like one of the worst outcomes for hospital deliveries.
Hospital delivery, yeah.
So with my second, I actually did plan a home birth. I had my midwife and I had a doula and I planned the home birth. But the pregnancy was going perfectly, so I think people also, one of their things that they struggle with is like, well, what if something goes wrong? But you get tested for all these things, and like if you have certain conditions, like they can't do a home birth, like you're going to do a hospital birth because you need medical intervention. But most births don't require medical intervention. But so anyways, I was having like a perfectly normal pregnancy and everything, but for whatever reason, we still don't know, like Exodus came 5 weeks early. He was born prematurely, and I went into labor and I started contractions, and I was like, what is this? Like, it's too early. And I called my midwife and I was like, hey, like, I think he's coming. She's like, well, I can't. She's like, it's too early. I can't do anything for you. Like, you have to go to the hospital because midwives can't deliver if a baby is born before 36 weeks.
Who says this? Is this like they can be held liable?
They can be held liable because sometimes when they're born that little, like they do need to be hooked up to like oxygen because their lungs, their lungs usually are not fully developed until 36 weeks. So we were so close. We were like 35 in a couple days.
Okay.
And so I had to go to the hospital. It was during COVID, and I remember.
Were you bummed?
I didn't even know where the hospital was. Like, I was so set on having this home birth, and I was so ready, and I was like so scared because it wasn't something that I was expecting.
Prepared, yeah.
And I was not prepared. And like Russell started driving like the wrong way to the hospital, and he had to like do a U-turn during rush hour, and like it was crazy. And we got to the hospital, and I thought I was gonna have the baby in the car. Like it happened very fast. The contractions were coming really fast. And he dropped me off at the hospital so he can park the car. And he was like, just walk in and like go, I'll be right there. And I walked in and I get in the elevator and I'm like clearly like in labor. The hospital worker was like, can you please put on this mask? And I was like, okay, so I put on the mask and I get in there and they're like, okay, who's your doctor? Like they're so nonchalant, who's your doctor? And I'm like, I don't have a doctor, like I have a midwife. And they're like, oh, they're like, oh, one of those, And so they brought on the on-call doctor and they wheeled me into the room and they look and they're like, oh yeah, this baby's coming. Like you're 10 centimeters dilated already.
Yeah, thanks, I didn't know.
Yeah, right. And so push, baby starts coming out. Russell walks in, like right as baby's coming out, like almost missed the birth because it happened so fast. And the way I was treated, and I didn't even know that Russell got a video of this because everything happened so fast and it was like so much happening. But I watched the video maybe like a year later, guys, I didn't even know he had it. And you can hear them, I'll show it to you one day, it's crazy. You can hear them go in the background, who is this girl? Like, get her ID. Like, we don't even know who she is. She just came in here. And they're just like yelling at me. Like, sorry, I get emotional because it's a little bit traumatic, but
tissue's right there.
Okay, that's okay. But it was really scary. And everyone was kind of just like yelling and like it was just happening so fast. And I wished I could have had my home birth, and it didn't happen that way. But, you know, that's okay because it happened the way that it was supposed to. But people are so scared of having a home birth. Like, I think the real scary part is having a hospital birth because of how I was treated. And I think because they also knew that, you know, we denied the vaccine, and they're like, oh, these people, like, they had a home birth planned and they are not going to give the vaccine. And they treated me so terribly. I remember I was trying to get my son to nurse, and he wasn't latching, and I was like, can you send me like a nurse or someone to help me? He's not latching. And she said, why don't you call your midwife? And walked away. And that's literally how I was treated. And then like they just kept keeping us there longer they tested him, and thank God they didn't have to take him to NICU. Like, his lungs were fully developed, and they kept like taking him from me and running all these tests on him. And I'm just like, can I just hold my baby and nurse him? Like, that's what's going to help. And they're like, oh, his blood sugar keeps going down. Like, you have to do this. We have to give him formula. I'm like, I don't want to, like, just let me hold him and let me nurse him, because that's how we get his blood sugar regulated. And they're like, no, we have to test him for this, and we have to test him for this. So they kept taking him away, so his blood sugar kept dropping. And then they made me give him formula, which I did not want to do, but it was like the only way I had to like cooperate with them. And
this was all in Miami, right?
This was in Miami, yeah.
My gosh.
Yeah. So then with Zuriel, my third, I planned the home birth. And I also had a backup plan just in case this time, but, you know, like had a doctor and whatever. But she came, you know, we passed the moment of, you know, where we could have her at home. So I was 39 weeks, and I actually just had my midwife came that morning for a visit, and everything looked fine. And later that day, and my babies come fast, as I told you from the last
you know
story,
now.
Yeah, they come fast. So we always joked with the midwife, like, well, we didn't joke. We were serious. We're like, if the baby comes and we call you and you don't make it, like, what do we do? And so she's like, oh, it's, you know, you blow up the tub. You have like a little birthing tub. You put water in it, and this is what you do. Like, Russell's going to catch the baby from the back and hand him to you, you know, so that the umbilical cord doesn't get twisted up, whatever.
Okay.
So we kind of knew exactly what to do.
Okay.
So that night I put Cairo to sleep, and I fell asleep in his bed with him. And then I start kind of having these contractions, and like you have like a contraction timer, like I had one on my phone, like this app, and it tells you like, okay, you time your contractions, how long they are. And within my first contraction, it was like, go to the hospital. And it happened really fast. And so I call my midwife and I'm like, hey, my contractions are here. They're moving along really fast. Like, you should head down here. And so she's like, okay, she's on her way. So we also had a birth videographer that was also kind of like on call. And we're like, okay, videographer, like, this is gonna happen. So she's on her way. So I'm like, okay, let me just go to the bathroom and freshen up real quick because the videographer is on her way.
I know.
You know how we are. And we happen to also have like a video camera set up in that room just in case. And so we start we have the whole thing recorded. And so so I go to the bathroom to start to like kind of freshen up. And I'm like, oh no, like, oh, I was so mad. I'm like, okay, this is.
Did you know Russell, fast?
Yeah,
Here
I knew.
It comes.
Yes, I was like, fill up the tub, like, let's go, let's do this. And so Russell fills up the tub, and I get in there, and like, you can't control, like, once the pushes start coming, like, there's nothing you can even do.
Right.
And so I push, and we're on the phone with a midwife. And
the midwife and videographer are not there yet.
No, but we're on the phone with a midwife. She's on speaker.
Okay.
And she's like, she goes, Russell, get ready to catch your baby. I don't think I'm going to make it. She said she could just tell by like the sound of my voice. She was like, she's been doing it. She's like, the baby's coming. I'm not going to make it. Like, get ready to catch your baby.
Wow.
And so I push again. Baby comes, and we're just sitting there. We're holding the baby, and we're just waiting for the midwife to come. And it was a beautiful experience. And like, just knowing that we could do it. Like, it's people did this again, like with the homeschooling thing. Like people have done doing this for thousands of years and not needing medical intervention. So we just sat there and just held the baby, and she came, and she did all the stuff, and she got the umbilical cord, and I got to go like rinse off in my own shower and lay in my own bed and nurse the baby and like not have to worry about people coming in and out and pricking the baby and doing that. I just got to do it the way that, I wanted it to be, and it was beautiful. It was perfect.
If you have a fourth, you're going to do it this way.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll avoid the hospital at all costs.
Yeah. Do you experience parental burnout?
I think you're going to experience parental burnout whether you homeschool or whether you don't homeschool. I've actually heard, and I've never experienced this for myself because my children have always been homeschooled, but I've heard a lot of stories of people whose kids were in school and they were having a lot of challenges and coming home and throwing tantrums and because of the stress of school. And then having like a terrible relationship with their parents, and then finding out that once they did homeschool them, that it changed a lot of things, and it actually made the relationship between the parents and the child better. So I think people might think because you are spending a lot more time with your kids that it might be you would be burning out more, but I think you can burn out in either scenario because of the energy, that's where the energy is flowing, you know?
Yeah. I also think that maybe sometimes those kids that are really acting up, it's because we're forcing them into to fall in line and to like live in a box. You know, you're like, what is that saying? Trying to stick a square in a peg, circle in a peg, whatever that is saying is.
Yeah.
And again, not all one size fits all. We can't have that approach for our kids, even if it's with schooling. At that point, we talked about it in vaccines and health, but I think the same thing applies for schooling. Each kid is different.
Yeah.
As for parental burnout, I can say by observing all family and friends, in traditional schooling, parental burnout is real.
Yeah.
I think you're right. It doesn't matter which side. And with that being said, it is safe to say that you and Russell together frontline the kids' education and their upbringing together. It's not just you doing everything by yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How do you and your husband divide responsibilities in your family's lifestyle?
My husband also, he's an entrepreneur. He does things from home, and I do the real estate stuff from home as well. So, and every week looks different. So we don't try to like say, well, you do this and you do this, but we do make sure that we communicate and we're always on the same page. So we have like this big calendar, and we go through it every Sunday together. And like, okay, well, you have a call on this day, so I'll be here, and I have to do this, or I'm gonna go to lunch with the girls or whatever. Like, so we kind of figure it out, and we fill in the gaps. My parents live close by, so they kind of help out as well. But we divide responsibilities based on whatever's going on that week, and we, everyone kind of helps that. We all kind of tag team, I guess.
Could you share more of Russell's responsibilities day to day in terms of raising the kids with you? Because I feel as though it's not very traditional. Yeah. And I like it. I admire it, and I look up to it, and I tell Brian all the time, I'm like, yeah, you want to go down this path? Because this is what you're going to be doing. Like, you don't get to leave the house and, do whatever, because Russell is very hands-on.
Oh, yeah.
From what I've witnessed. Here's the thing, like I had mentioned earlier, you should be very intentional when you're starting a family. Think about things. Don't expect the government or these institutions to raise your kids for you. Like, don't do that. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing good that really comes out of that. And I know people are like, well, my kids came out great. I came out great. Right, but it could be better. We can always be better and have a much more fulfilling life, I think, a healthier life. Wouldn't anybody want that for their kids? With that being said, I'm aware that usually both parents are working, or the fathers, or someone's always working in this situation. And it gets a little stuff like, well, I'm not going to stay home with all these kids, and I'm not going to homeschool them, and I'm not going to do this. But I know that Russell really does make the time to do so. Yeah. What does that look like?
Yeah, and it sounds cliche to say, but he's very involved in their inner lives, but like the physical stuff, like he loves jiu-jitsu, he loves capoeira, so he practices with the kids. Like they're and kids need that. Like there's studies that show like, kids that get like tossed around by their father, like they have like more of a sense of fulfillment. So that stuff, he's so great. And he's also like more of the disciplinary than I am, but he helps out in all aspects. But I think like he does kind of maintain more of like the disciplinary, and there's certain things where he finds like fun, creative things to do with them. Like when we're learning a certain concept, and he'll find a way to make it fun, or like a beanbag toss to learn whatever, like the concept we're working on.
Both of you, it's fair to say, like, you're not just, oh, I just stay home with the kids, or he just did. No, you both actually.
We're both home. He's home all day.
100% with the kids.
I mean, he takes meetings, and he's mostly in the office, and we try to be very intentional about, because our kids are home, like we don't want them to see us on our phone or on the laptop all the time. So we're like, we have the office, and when it's work time, like he goes in there, and if I'm like, hey, I gotta go to the office and work on some stuff, like we switch out, because we don't want them to see us like constantly, what I mean?
Yeah, you always want to be present and engaged at all times. With such an intensive family approach that you guys have, how do you guys make time for each other?
Yeah, I think one of the greatest things that, comes from homeschooling is that like, and our kids being so like physically active, is like they're burnt out, like they're in bed by 7:30. And I think a lot of people, like their kids come home from school, everyone is tired, they're tired, but they have all this built up energy too, so, and then they have homework, and then they're up, like a lot of kids I know, like they're up till like 9 or something. So we have that, like our kids they're burnt out, they've done so much, they're full, their cups are full, they go to bed, 7:30. So we have like a good couple hours at the end of each night that we get to spend together and debrief on the day and just hang out and chill. But we also like make time to, like, we'll have like my parents come over while we go have like a lunch date or things like that. We try to program like a date into our schedules where we're like, it's just us when we actually like leave the house, as well as the time that we get together at.
How do you guys navigate the different parenting styles? I feel like you're pretty aligned on those.
Yeah.
But if there's something that he feels a certain way and you feel a certain way, like how do you guys come together on that?
I think that because we do recognize that, like, when it comes to our children, like, it's more about, we're not trying to teach them like what to think, but how to think, that we don't run into a lot of those things. But when we do, because obviously we do have like different kind of styles, and you have to try things out and see what works, you know? And so like, okay, well, how do you think it should be handled? And like, let's try that and see how that goes. And then we'll kind of like go back and be like, well, that might not have been working. So like, what else can we try? So I think it's a lot of trial and error. And I think parenting in general is
trial and error.
Is like that, because you don't know, and different kids react differently to certain sort of discipline or, you know, approaches. So it's just a lot of like being okay with like failing at certain approaches and be like, well, let's try it this way.
You travel internationally, and we touched on this a little bit. How has that contributed to their education, their worldview, in your opinion?
I think I see education as not just, you know, you memorize all these facts, but it's actually being like a member of this globe and being able to have awareness of the world that you live in. So like when we went to, you know, Abu Dhabi, they obviously saw a lot of like the glitz and the glamour and these, you know, Ferrari world, and like, you know, it's different. And then you go to Egypt and then you see a little bit, you know, you see some poverty. You see children that are their own age, like the 5-year-old kids that are selling things on the street and asking, you know, like you said earlier, like people will be like, oh, they can't understand these things, but like they do internalize a lot of things. Like it may not be like a lasting, like it'll be a memory, but it's more of like, it makes an imprint in how they see the world, you know? And then we explain to them too, like, we are very lucky to have the things that we have. Like, this kid is out here because he doesn't have food and he's asking people to help him get food. And you guys have so much food at home, you know? And then like we can come back home and like, if they're like, oh, I don't want that, you know, and like, you know, with food and, you know, like you said earlier, like we don't force foods on them, but like if they're just like being picky, then we can like bring up that situation and we can refer to like, well, you know, there are children that don't have food, and like it's a real thing. So I think being able to incorporate things that they've seen, that, you know, that how other people live, and use that as teachable moments when they're back home too.
Don't they also ask for some foods that they've had in other countries? Like when they come back home, they're like, ask you for certain things.
They love mint tea. When we were in Morocco, we had mint tea all the time.
Yeah, like what kid asks for mint tea?
You know,
I love it. I think it's incredible. For parents who might feel very inspired by our episode today, but overwhelmed of like, how do I start? Where do I start? What would you say would be a first step?
With homeschooling, in regards to homeschooling, or just in this holistic sort of
just
kind
a
of
holistic
life?
Sort of way.
Yeah, I think just recognizing that, like, what do you want your child to be in this world? And one thing I think about, and then like just trying to make the best decisions to honor that. So I think about this, the Lego example, and like when we were little, like Legos came in like a big box with a bunch of different shapes and colors and sizes, and you could just pick them up, and like if you wanted to make a car, you could make a car. If you wanted to make a robot, you could make a robot. And then somewhere along the line, someone that worked at Lego came along and was like, let's make these Lego kits. And these Lego kits have like instruction manual, and then like the specific Lego pieces that you need. And then it's like one by one, like put this Lego here, put this Lego here, put this, and then, so really you're just following instruction, and you're not innovating in any way. And so I kind of see school that way too, is like, do you want a child that's just going to be able to follow directions? Or do you want a child that's going to live like out of this Lego box where they have all these different possibilities and they can create something beautiful and be innovative and be creative?
Well, also in the Lego box, the latter one, it's like you will hear the instructions, so it looks like this picture on the front.
Yes, yes.
So do you want your kids to be like everybody else? Like, I think this is where you come in with the whole, like, when you were young and in Iowa and in school and you were different, you grow up, yes, I'm different. Let's celebrate that. That's not a bad thing.
Yes.
It's like different is not a bad thing. Yes, there's a level of comfort and security that I think kids need to feel and see other kids look like them, talk like them, or have the same issues that maybe we have. I get that part. But at certain points, like, you don't want your kids to be like everybody else. You don't, that's not, and also those are the people that are fully fulfilled or do something big in life or the happiest and healthiest people. No, they're not. Usually when you see people, wherever the mass is, it's like, go the opposite way.
Yes.
You know, like, don't follow. That's a really good example though. Wow. I love that. What message do you hope that your children take away from this unique childhood experience you're curating for them?
That they are the creators of their own world, and that they can do, the possibilities are endless. They can do whatever they want. And it's not about following instructions. It's about following your inner self and finding out like your purpose and not being like everybody else, and being able to think critically in this world.
For yourself.
Yeah.
What fills you up or recharges you as a mother or as a woman?
Yeah, I think just being able to have moments to yourself. So I wake up early before everyone's up, and I kind of have that time. I watch the sunrise and I journal. But also, I think we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, like people think like, oh, if you live this life, you're not going to have anything, like any time for yourself. And like,
or you lose your identity.
You lose your identity, but like you really find ways to integrate into everything that's happening. So it's not just like, I have my life and then like there's the kids' life. But like, so like, for example, like my kids were learning piano, and I've always wanted to learn piano. So I'm like, well, we have the piano teacher here. Like, I'm going to have him stay an extra hour and work with me too. So like, do things while you're teaching. It's an opportunity for you to learn things that are interesting to you, and do projects with your kids that are also interesting to you that you've always wanted to learn. Because like, I feel like we're innately, like, we want to learn, but because I think the school system has kind of crushed that, that desire, like, you can have that back, and you can use that opportunity to learn things for yourself and like be a part of, like, relive kind of these things that you didn't get to do in your childhood.
If you weren't living this current lifestyle, what do you think you would be doing?
I don't see any other, I don't see any other way. I think that whatever I would be doing, it would be like connecting with the natural world.
Like holistic living.
Yeah.
Thinking for yourself and just digging deeper, going deeper down the rabbit hole.
Deeper down the rabbit hole. The best place to be.
Conspiracy theories. Let's keep going deeper. Where can people learn more about your approach to family life?
I think I told you this. I was off of social media for like 3.5 years, and it was kind of during the pandemic, and I just felt like we already did our TV around the same time, and I decided like I didn't really want to be any part of that anymore. But anyways, recently I just got back on. I'm on Instagram. Like, I share, like, just for fun, I share some things about our lives, and like,
no, I love the stuff that you share. I really do. You literally, everything you just said, you show the kids picking mangoes. Today it's mango season. You're picking the mangoes in the tree. I've seen Russell when he was teaching them the courageous thing. You posted a video about that. Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And then there's one where Kyra was public speaking.
Oh yeah.
On Bitcoin.
It was the cutest.
It was so cute. Like, I literally got up and ran to Brian to show him the video. I thought it was so adorable. But like, you really are living proof that this is another way of living, and it's not as hard as people make it out to be.
Yeah.
Like, it's totally doable, for sure. Did you share your Instagram handle or not? Do you want to?
Sure.
That's up to you.
We can.
Okay, you can share it.
Oh, it's just Samar Okung, SamarOkung.
On Instagram.
On Instagram, yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Samar, for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It was fun.
Of course.